The people you partner with, the vendors you partner with are incredibly crucial if you are trying to go along this curve of bringing AI into your organization.
It's not just AI for AI's sake. It is that partnership, and it is really building together for the long haul, right? Like, this isn't something that you just implement and move on.
You're stuck in the good, but you can't get to great because you keep doing things in an old way. And it's the silent cost of not evolving that's going to set you behind.
So hello, everyone, and welcome to the State of FM, episode 4. Today, I'm Beth Mooney, Director of Customer and Product Marketing at FEXA, and we are talking about AI. I am so excited to be joined by our Chief Customer Officer, Maranda Dziekonski, and our Senior Director of Product, Klaer. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us. Excited to have this conversation.
Very excited to be here.
So let's just jump in, right? AI, it's everywhere. Everyone has it. If they don't have it, they want it. Yet there's still a little bit of a gray area how you actually get it. So today, I think we need to touch on security concerns, visibility, training, change management, all the things that we're hearing as potential hurdles with our customers, and maybe some myths that we can help debunk and hopefully help our audience walk away with confidence that maybe they've been lacking to have some of those internal conversations and get the ball rolling here. Sound good?
Awesome. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start here. You both have very interesting positions at the cross section of just about every customer conversation that's been happening, and definitely have insights that our listeners will find valuable. So, Maranda, let's start with you. In your experience, what actually gets in the way of someone saying yes to AI? Like, what's the real hesitation?
Yeah. Rarely, I will say, is it the actual technology. Like, period. It's rarely the technology. It's usually that nobody wants to be the person who signed off on something that they can't explain to a room of folks that may be skeptical, or the champion is carrying maybe some career risk on the topic. They usually call it timing, but it's usually am I willing to put my neck out for this? The blocker isn't usually the technology. It's usually like, how will I get this funded? Am I willing to put my neck out? What am I going to have to do to get through security? I don't want to have to deal with my legal team on this. There's just so many unknowns.
Interesting. Michelle, have you heard similar things from the product perspective?
I would say Miranda's absolutely correct. I think there's also a component of like, how confident do I feel to have those conversations? Do I have the right level of ROI, and do I have a clear vision of the outcomes we'll be able to achieve with this service, and how can I present that to my leadership so that I can move forward? And being able to have those assets and then feel really empowered and confident about having that conversation.
Interesting. So I hear that a lot, that people feel like maybe they have to become this AI expert before they can have the conversation. They need to have all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted. Michelle, what are some questions that you've heard maybe come up through the process that really kind of debunk that? They don't need to be the expert, that, they can kind of run with it on their own a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Customers that we've worked with, it is really about knowing how the service works on a basic level, like being able to talk about it in very simplistic terms. Again, you don't need to be an expert and know how it's engineered, but to know, oh, it's inside my system, and it's working with our configurations and our defaults, and it's helping us move more efficiently through that process. And being able to have this simple language to tie back. So again, you don't have to be a expert on how these services are built, but know a bit about the use cases and the flows and how it fits into the platform you have today.
Maranda, from your perspective, when we talk about that education, how are you helping anyone feel equipped to explain these things that are honestly pretty new?
Yeah, usually where a lot of the questions come from are, a few categories, but I think the three big ones that I see is where does our data go? Like, what are you doing with our data? We hear a lot about this in the news. about, models being trained, people accidentally uploading data into a free chat GPT model, and then it's public. So they get a lot of there's a lot of questions around that. Will my team actually use this, or will this just become one more tab that's open in their browser? Like, what are the problems that we're actually solving for here? And then I think the third bucket is, am I about to add more work to people who are already stretched? Is this going to, take away from their workload or add to it? Those are three big buckets that I hear as well, on top of what Michelle just said.
Interesting. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and jump into this feels like less of a technology decision and more like a people decision listening to you both. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Michelle, what are your thoughts around what does it look like when you're hearing this, you're understanding their needs from a business perspective, but you're seeing that hesitation? How have you maybe like helped identify that, and what are some things that you can help them in their day to day understand about that change piece?
I think it's understanding you're it's not about AI, but it's the technology partner. It's about the relationship on the other side, as much as it is about all the things that we've said about the efficiencies and how AI can improve our experiences and speed us up, make us more efficient, etc. But you're really looking at, hey, we're here to partner with you for the long haul. We're here to hear you. We want to understand your use cases. We want to understand your requirements, your workflows, et cetera, so that we can build together. And so I think that is huge when we're talking about building KPIs to showcase the value and building out the future to make sure it accommodates for our customers. And that customer like relationship on both the customer success, Miranda's team, and the product and engineering side. I think that makes a world of a difference because not every company is designed to partner in the same way.
Interesting. Miranda, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree with everything Michelle said. It's definitely, I know that we are FEXA, but, FEXA, take that out of the equation. If you are looking at a vendor to help you solve a said problem that you have within the walls of your organization, whether it's AI or not AI, you really have to look at not just the technology piece, but the people part. Like,
Mhm.
what is the support after you say yes and you sign on the line? What does the implementation look like? What does the change management look like? And also, what does the partnership look like from, yes, I agree, I have this problem, to help me create the vocabulary I need to be able to sell this internally to the folks that hold the purse strings. Like, I need to be able to go and ask for money to support this initiative. I agree, I have this problem. Help me create that vocabulary and build that case. That's all part of the partnership, right?
Mhm.
Not enough, especially these days when there are, again, taking us out of the equation, many options out there for folks to, solve their problems. It becomes more than just, is this like, do I check this technology, or do I use this technology? Do I use this technology? No, it becomes, what about the holistic partnership? Show me the full package.
I love that you're striking a balance between, it's not just AI for AI's sake. It is that partnership, and it is really building together for the long haul, right? Like, this isn't something that you just implement and move on. It's that follow up and that support. And I'm also hearing this building confidence and helping identify KPIs and things like that. That comes down to kind of building a champion, right? What does that look like? I'm sure, Miranda, I'd love your perspective. I'm sure you're actively doing this on a regular
Well,
basis.
and
What
before
does
we
it look
move
like?
on from the last topic, I want to just add that, this AI thing is not going away. So I know there are people out there that are hesitant to be the first movers, and I get that. I do. I genuinely get that. But my advice to folks as they're thinking about how to overcome any of the internal voices they may have, or any of the external pressures they may have, is knowing that this is here to stay. This is revolutionary. So either, you find the right partner to partner with you to help move that needle, or somebody internally is going to make the move before you, right? And sometimes they will pick something that maybe you won't be as happy with. So it's just kind of food for thought.
I think that's a really important part of this, that this AI is software now.
Right.
And that's just part of the roadmap. That's part of what you're going to see with any of your vendors going forward. And if you think about what makes a good vendor, that changes their perspective. It's not about AI, it's about the holistic partnership, and it's about the software and the vendor as a whole.
Exactly. And sorry for interrupting you, Beth. I had it in my mind. I'm like, I have to get this point out.
No, that's okay. Well, let's stay there because it kind of touches on an interesting point about like, do I stay or do I go? Do I get it now or do I wait and see how others kind of feel about that? What would you say to somebody who's like sitting on the fence right now and unsure of that decision?
Stop deciding about AI. Decide about one workflow, one problem that if you could fix it, it would solve this for your team, or your team's lives would be infinitely better. One value point that if you could move the needle on it, it would make you look like an operational genius. Um, and if you can, if you're sitting on the fence, stop saying, should I use AI or shouldn't I use AI? Take a look at the problems that you're trying to solve and then plug in the tools from there.
Michelle, what are your thoughts there? I can see the wheels turning.
Yeah, I got lost in thought there, but I was almost like, what if we reframed it to say, what could I automate?
Yeah.
What could I make more efficient? And if we think from that perspective, then it's less scary. I feel like AI can have a bad connotation sometimes. So what could I automate? If I could just set and forget something and make that more efficient in the flow of my day to day, what would that be? And how much would that give back me and my team? Where would I see those gains? And that's where we track those KPIs. But AI comes in where we can automate and set rules for things that can function for you so you don't have to do something. And if we break it down to like the most simplistic term, it's less scary to talk about and easier to step into that space. And then we have a real conversation about the use cases that we offer and where we can turn those on so our customers can see immediate value.
And I think automation is only one stream. If I was, a director of facilities management sitting right now looking at my operations, I would pick out two or three big problems that are continuously consuming my budget, whether that is, false truck rolls, my team chasing down information in work orders, whatever it may be. I would sit and I would take a look at what are what are the 10 that things that I could solve for, and what are the top two or three that if I solve for this, it would, of course, I've already said this, but make my team's lives infinitely better, but also, free up budget from my, reactive management to be able to move that over to proactive management, whatever it may be. But I would pick just two or three problem statements. And then it becomes less about this scary tool and more about I'm going to solve these two or three things, and then we can tackle them together. Then we can move on to the next two or three things. Wash, rinse, repeat, right?
Absolutely.
I love that. I often think too, we there's this fear factor in what happens with the time that I saved, or what happens like what that now I have this bucket of things. Where does that go? I think we could all answer that in different ways, but I think what would be the best piece of advice that you would give an FM who's kind of hesitant about that of what they do with this time savings or this
Yeah,
dollars?
it's a great question, Beth. And I would ask them, do you have enough time right now to finish everything that you have on your plate every week? Are you finding yourself sitting there wondering, what should I work on now? And the answer is probably no. So, peeling off those things that don't require the critical thinking skills, don't require the human intervention, or shouldn't require the human intervention, is just going to free up your time and your team's time to do the things that are really going to move the needle in your operations. They're going to, take you from good to great, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said, Miranda. There's so oftentimes like we don't get through the checklist of all the things that we need to do today or this week or this month. And then there are like wish list projects that we have. And so if we reorient that to say, if I could automate this and get that time back, I can tackle that project. I can dig more into the strategic functions of the business to help growth where I don't have time for that today because I'm firefighting.
Yeah, and I'm going to add one thing too, that folks that are managing humans in this process, there is one change management thing I would call out immediately if you're going down this path, and it's the dopamine hits that we all get when we're able to check something off our list, right?
Mm,
And when you start inserting AI, a lot of the busy work goes away, and that frees your team up to do the things that you actually need them to do. However, they're going to get their dopamine hits in a different spot. And that's something you should think about when you're thinking through change management of how you position that, how you plan for where those hours will go, and how do they get those dopamine hits in a different way.
I love that. I love that. So important to reframe this, and that we're not this thing this time or these dollars don't go away. It's reallocating, right,
Allocating.
and doing things in a
Exactly.
different way.
Exactly.
Love it. Love it. Now, I'm sure you've also been faced with teams, perhaps, where maybe they're not all in. There's someone who's, as we said, sitting on the fence, or someone who's maybe hesitant. How are you having those conversations, and what's happening when you have that split decision? And how are you guys handling those conversations now?
I think understanding the full breadth and capability. A lot of times when there's hesitancy, it's because there is a gap in understanding of what exists and how it
Mm,
can be helpful. And so it really comes across in education and conversation. And it's proving through conversations, demonstrations, or it's data on how we can progress on their goals and move them forward. And I think that that moves you from like, okay, I was kind of hesitant, actually that is going to be really helpful. And we have a lot of conversations, I think Miranda and I together, where we're sitting in those spaces and actively working with customers to help tell the whole story and move from X to Y.
Yeah, and I would add to that. Michelle and I partner a lot on this. As a matter of fact, I see Michelle more than I see my husband. Um, and one of the things I would say is if you have a team or a champion or somebody who's on the fence, again, go back to the problem statements, make sure that you're in agreement that they do have these said problems. But two, get creative.
mm,
What do you need to see in order to show you if this technology will solve your problems? What kind of proof points? How can we help you gather those proof points? What does that look like with your team? Maybe look at a pilot or something like that to where you can gather your own proof points internally. Like there's a lot of like tactical things you can do. But of course, first and foremost, you have to get that buy-in that you are solving the right problems and this is a problem that is worth solving. Once you get there, you can get creative, on the other side of that hill on how you're going to solve that problem, what solving it looks like, what are the measurements you're going to measure that show you, that you're moving the needle in the right direction, so on and so forth.
I think a key call out, Miranda, is that it's not a one size fits all.
Correct.
mm.
That we have those conversations and we partner with each and every one of our customers to make sure that that is set is specifically for them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the get creative piece. Now, I want to touch on, obviously these conversations happen amongst an entire organization. We've always got our contact that we talk to, but then we've got to get buy-in through other departments that may have a different lens. So I want to hit on the IT and legal and security, because sometimes those are some complicated questions to ask. Let's start maybe with security as a big one, right? What do people assume that they have to figure out on their own, and what's already been figured out for them?
Do you want to start, Michelle, or do you want me to? I feel like I live this as well.
You what?
I live this too. So I
Go for it. Go
yeah.
for
The good news is these teams, they're our friends, but they're also very predictable, right? They're there to help us make sure we keep, our operations safe, and we want to look at everything through that lens. And I can break it down. Usually the three departments that we end up having to answer the most questions from are IT, legal, and then finance falls in there afterwards. IT usually asks about data isolation, SSO, MFA, and where the AI model actually runs, right? Legal usually asks about data retention, whether your data trains anything, indemnification. And then finance wants to know, where is this money going to come from? What's the run rate? What does this display? So the good news, because these are usually pretty predictable, we can help put together a nice packet for our partners to take to whomever their internal stakeholders are. So far, and I've been doing this for 27 years, not in AI, of course, but I've never seen a security question that hasn't already been asked by somebody else's IT team or legal team. So, we all get smarter together and we, aggregate all those questions and give you a nice, easy way to, present it.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. Because these questions are not new revelations, we do have built out pre-built questionnaires in responses to a lot of this data, and we have that in a place where our customers can request access to. A lot of the foundational questions also go into our platform, and that has already been accomplished through other reviews as they came on board with FEXA. A lot of the questions that I got earlier on that we do also have in our documentation is around the data models. What is the process? Like Miranda said, are we using this data to train? And are we sharing this data across like customer environments? And so those are the big ones. And the answer to that question is no, we don't. But uh, those are
Thank you. I was gonna ask you explicitly.
Yeah,
yeah,
this is where Beth starts quizzing us on what
yeah,
our product does.
yeah, absolutely. Again, they're not new revelations. A lot of our customers have the same questions as they're on board.
Totally. And I'm going to add too that I have seen, though, one of the hurdles that folks may have to overcome is how mature their IT and legal teams are with the understanding of AI, but not just AI, but procuring software.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will get an MSA over that is clearly written for somebody doing services in person, right? And it's not really written for software, right? So again, we can partner with you to overcome that hurdle and figure out how we can all come to a happy path. And that goes back to my earlier call out that the people you partner with, the vendors you partner with, are incredibly crucial if you are trying to go along this curve of bringing AI into your organization. And them having that know-how, that knowledge, that information that they can help you, put together the right talk track internally is crucial.
I love that. The partnership is so key, right? So we've touched on a couple different aspects of things. We've talked about kind of, the timing and being an early adopter. Let's talk about someone who is kind of I'm not going to touch it for a while. I'm going to be hands off for a little bit. People that wait maybe too long. I want to get your opinions on what consequence that might have.
I can take this one. I think from the standpoint of maybe wanting to be more on the lag of adoption, I think the risk you run is it's not completely apparent and noisy, but it is the silent effect of not moving, not becoming more efficient, not transforming your processes. Kind of if going back to like that good to great, you're stuck in the good, but you can't get to great because you keep doing things in an old way when there's so much advancement in technology to help us break through barriers that weren't possible before. And then the change management piece of like moving your teams, if you're a people leader, and getting them to come with you along this process of innovation and doing new things, working in new ways. And it's the silent cost of not evolving that's going to set you behind.
Yeah. I'm going to say something a little bit provocative here. I think we are going to just, in general, in the workforce, get to a point to where all leaders will be judged on how they're leveraging AI within their organizations to do whatever it is they need to do in the most efficient way possible. Efficient, smart, using human capital in a smart way, using human capital in a way that you can't use AI, right? I think that we're all going to get to that point. And I think that that is probably sooner than later. So the real cost is that quiet compounding of not changing and not bringing your organization forward, but then having to play catch up
Mm.
after
Mm,
when
Yeah.
everybody else has adopted or they're peeling off a use case or two to solve. Now, those that didn't will be scrambling to catch up.
true words. All right, ladies, we have a final wrap up here. Before we close, I just did want to remind our listeners this is episode 4. So please like, comment, share. We are so excited about our podcast. It can be found on YouTube and Spotify, and we are having a blast putting this together. Side note, if you have ideas for topics that you would love just to explore a little bit further, we're all ears. So certainly let us know. But closing thoughts here, maybe what do we say to someone who is a little nervous, but they're ready. They want to have the conversation. How do we help them along in this process here?
Yeah, narrow your scope, capture your baseline measurements before you change anything, and then be incredibly crisp and clear about what does change management look like within your organization, what your problem statements are, how you're going to measure it, yada yada yada. Like, just treat it like you would any other
Mm.
technology adoption, right? I know AI has such a sometimes scary sentiment around it, but people need to start thinking about it as this is just another tool in the toolkit I have available to me to solve problems, and think about measuring it in the same way, and you'll be further along than a lot.
Yeah. I'd say on top of that, if that feels daunting, like, whoa, how do I start? Reach out to us. We would love to help you with that process. And so, if you want to get started, if you're interested and not sure how, or just need some help, we're here to partner. Again, back to the partnership and the people. We can help you understand that, help you build out those frameworks to move forward, and answer any questions along the way. You don't have to go at it alone.
You're not alone. You can lean on your partners.
Hashtag facts.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you both. This was so informative. I hope this has helped maybe some of our listeners who, again, are unsure or don't know where to start. We walked away with a lot of action-packed, I think, checklist of items of where to get started, and maybe some perspective about why you shouldn't wait. So thank you both again for your time. This was great, and we'll see you again on the next State of FM.
So much fun. Thank you.
Yes.